House of the Dragon made us feel like we were chained to our screens. But now that it's over and done, we've got ample material to discuss and dissect. That's all we can do anyways, till we wait for the next one. So here we are today, looking at how the season mirrored the anarchy in England, along with some slightly unnoticeable details about Rhaenyra that you might have missed. Let's get into it. First off, what was the anarchy? Basically, it was a civil war that took place in England and Normandy, which was then controlled by English kings. The War of Succession started in 1138 AD and ended after 15 years in 1153 AD, but the first seeds were sown 20 years prior. King Henry I had lost his son in 1120 AD to drunk driving, that too on sea. William Adelin had been traveling across the English Channel to England on his way back from Normandy when his drunken helmsman hit a rock that they couldn't see. On top of that, the king's wife had passed away a few years ago, and that left him with no successor. He decided to try his best to fix this situation. The first thing he did was to declare his teenage daughter, Empress Matilda, his successor. Second, he married a woman much younger than himself, Adeliza of Louvain, and hoped that she'd give him another male heir. If you've seen the series, this is probably already making sense. Now, unfortunately, his second wife never gave birth to a son, and he had to start training his daughter for the throne. He also made all his men swear their undying loyalty to her. She also married a noble from an area on Normandy's borders for political reasons, and had a son named Henry Fitzempress. The king's plans didn't go as well when he died in 1135 AD. None of his noblemen honored their agreements and betrayed the empress while she was in London. They appointed Stephen of Blois, Henry's nephew, instead, and that didn't work. From there on, it was an all-out civil war. Next up, how does the House of Dragon mirror the anarchy? At a Comic-Con panel back in 2022, the sensational creator of the fantasy world explained that he'd based GOT around the War of the Roses, and House of the Dragon had taken inspiration from the anarchy. The series is still completely fictional, but how much inspiration did he take from real-life events? In the very beginning, it's made clear that chauvinism is at large in Westeros, and that a male ruler is preferred by the masses. The aging King Jaehaerys' sons are all dead, and his noblemen are pushed to make a decision. They can choose between two of his grandchildren, the older, more experienced woman, or Viserys. Of course, they go with Viserys. In a similar pattern to Henry I's life, Viserys is faced with a complication when his wife, Aemma, is unable to give birth to a male heir. After multiple stillbirths and miscarriages, the couple are left with one daughter, Rhaenyra. Any hope of a son is squashed when Aemma dies after a brutal cesarean section. The son dies soon after birth as well. At first, he attempts to stay steadfast on the patriarchal path by naming his younger brother Daemon as his heir, but this quickly backfires as he proves to be untrustworthy. The only choice left is to name his daughter as queen, and that is what he does, although he's not too happy about it. Rhaenyra, on the other hand, is more than happy to balance out the testosterone present in the higher-ups. Now for the difference between the two. History's events tell us that Henry I spent quite some time making his daughter's ascension easier to digest while he was still around. He forced his barons to swear allegiance in 1127 and arranged a political marriage following the death of her first husband, Holy Roman Emperor Henry V. The barons were made to re-swear their oath of loyalty when Matilda married Geoffrey, Count of Anjou, and then once again when she had her son. Viserys' tactic is pretty similar in the series too. The noblemen are gathered to vow their loyalty to Rhaenyra as the rightful heir to the throne. Her father also finds a suitable contender for a political marriage that she begrudgingly accepts. Now, here's where the difference comes in. In reality, Matilda had a son with her husband, while Rhaenyra doesn't. She does, in fact, have 3 sons by her lover. Her situation is complicated once her father remarries and has 2 sons, thinning out her chances of ascending. Since neither the nobility in Westeros nor England appreciate women's sexual endeavors, both her sons are illegitimate and won't be accepted as rightful heirs. Let's look at where the storyline could go now if it continues to take inspiration from history. After the Great Betrayal occurred, Matilda had her supporters ready with her, and instead of bending a knee to Stephen, she decided to fight back. And so began the 15-year-long anarchy. The Empress's forces invaded England in 1139, and soon after, the 2 sides reached a stalemate. She took most of the southwest of England and the Thames Valley, while Stephen kept his rule over the southeast. Other cowardly and self-serving barons decided to wait out the war till a victor emerged, so that they may keep their sides. Long story short, Stephen was eventually allowed to remain king, and it was agreed that Henry would ascend the throne after him. Unfortunately, Matilda never got to be queen, and the next one came 4 centuries later, with Queen Mary in 1553. In Westeros, we saw Rhaenyra dealing with a similar situation after the death of her father. The small council broke their vows to the dead king and plotted to crown his son as the new king. Like Matilda, Rhaenyra doesn't back down and gathers her own allies and names herself queen. The season ended with the first stages of war brewing in Westeros, and as of yet, we've no idea if that's the plot they'll carry on in the second season. There's a bunch of pointless battles in the Anarchy that wouldn't make sense on screen, and we know that they like to keep things dramatic, so let's see what route the creators take in the next season. Moving on to the tragic reality of Rhaenyra's struggle. You might have missed a crucial detail. The princess started off as this ambitious woman who was working hard towards ascending to the throne, but as the years passed, she became more and more tired of her royal duties. They became much more of a painful burden rather than a life goal. During a scene in episode 8, while Rhaenyra is crying, she says, "I thought I wanted it," in reference to the title of King Viserys' heiress. A fan on Reddit broke this scene down and explained that her desire to become heir was her way to get validation and attention from her father, just like Daemon. But by the time she was older, she realized she didn't really want it and only held onto it as a daughterly sense of duty. The fan went on to talk about how she tried her best to make peace and negotiate with the Greens, but after Alicent's son Aemond kills her son Lucerys, war looms heavy on the horizon. So if the war actually happens, it's only to avenge her son, and not because she wants to rule the 7 kingdoms. This is an ironic situation, given that the Green King, Aegon, doesn't really want the throne either. Even so, the war is inevitable, be it for their own motives and not royal ambitions. That's pretty much all we're aware of. All we can do is dissect the season more and more to predict what might happen in the second season until it finally airs. Lastly, what more can we expect in the second season? Given that the show was renewed after its premiere, fans will have to wait at least 2 years for the next season to air. Till then, we're taking a look at the potential new characters for season 2, as the cast will obviously grow as the show moves further in its adaptation of R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood. Beginning with Cregan Stark, who we might meet on Jacaerys' diplomatic mission for his mother. An important stop on the trip is Winterfell, and it's ruled by a man named Cregan Stark, who's also almost the same age as Jace. On the same tour, he might also encounter Jain Arryn, the ruler of the Vale. Daeron Targaryen, the youngest son of Alicent Hightower and Viserys, had been in Oldtown during season 1, and so he might be making his first appearance in the next season. During the finale, Daemon brought up wild dragons that were living on Dragonstone. If the Blacks want to win against the Greens, they need all the help they can get. In order to do so, they need someone who can master the wild dragons, and in the book, Nettles was one of the people who answered the to call put out by the Blacks. And that's all for this video, guys. What did you think about House of the Dragon? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.